Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to share can shift how you show up in relationships, and more importantly, how you show up for yourself. You know the feeling. You hit send. You wait, refresh the screen. No reply. Hours turn into days, and the silence screams louder than words ever could. And then the question creeps in, am I not enough? Did I say the wrong thing? Why are they pulling away? But here's the truth, that silence is not about you. It's about them. And the way you respond in that moment determines whether you step into your power or hand it away. So today, I want to give you 6 keys, 6 powerful shifts that will transform how you handle that silence. 1, remember who you are. When someone doesn't reply, the first instinct is to doubt yourself. Stop. Remember, you are not defined by someone else's avoidance. You are whole, worthy, and enough before anyone ever replies to you. 2, detach from the drama. An avoidant person's silence is their pattern, not your punishment. Don't chase the chaos. Step back. The calmer you are, the more power you hold. 3, lead with strength, not fear. Fear wants you to send a desperate texting. Why aren't you answering me? Strength says, I value myself enough to communicate with clarity. You don't beg for attention, you command respect through confidence. 4, the power text. The clarity, it's calm. Here's the one message you send. Hey, I sense some distance. That's okay. I'm here when you're ready to connect. Short, respectful, no blame, no begging. You've opened the door without giving away your self-worth. 5, don't wait in the shadows after you send it. Don't sit by the phone like your life depends on their reply. Go live your life. Build, create, laugh, and love the people who do show up for you. Your energy should never be held hostage by someone else's silence. 6, rewrite the story. Every time you handle silence with strength, you rewrite the story you tell yourself. You move from I'm not enough to I am in control of how I show up. I am worthy of connection that feels safe, consistent, and real. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to get a text back. The goal is to step into relationships as the powerful, centered, unapologetic version of yourself. The version that doesn't chase it but attracts. So the next time the avoidant doesn't reply, remember this, you don't just send a text. You send a message to yourself. That message is, I honor me first. You know, one of the greatest traps people fall into when someone doesn't respond is this immediate erosion of self. It's that quiet, almost invisible unraveling of who they believe they are. Think about it. You send that message, and the moment the minutes tick by with no reply, your mind starts building stories. Maybe I said too much. Maybe I came on too strong. Maybe they don't want me. And the more you repeat those thoughts, the more you chip away at your own sense of worth. But let's pause for a moment. What's really happening here? It's not the absence of a text that's hurting you. It's what you're telling yourself that abs means. It's not their silence. It's your interpretation of their silence. And that interpretation is rooted in something much deeper in your identity. Let's sit with that word, because your identity, how you see yourself, how you define yourself, is the foundation of every choice you make, every relationship you step into, and every reaction you give when life throws you a curveball. If your identity is fragile, then someone's silence feels like a personal attack. But if your identity is strong, centered, unshakable, their silence becomes exactly what it is, a neutral event that says more about them than it ever could about you. Now, some of you are thinking, that's easier said than done. Of course it is, because we've been conditioned from a very young age to tie our sense of worth to external validation. As children, we look for approval. Through grades, through praise, through whether mom or dad smiled when we brought home the picture we colored. As we grew older, that conditioning didn't just go away. It matured how we respond to partners, friends, bosses, even strangers on the internet. So, when that avoidant doesn't reply, you're not just dealing with a text message. You're dealing with the echo of a lifetime of training that taught you, if someone doesn't acknowledge me, maybe I don't matter. That's why this moment is so powerful. Because in that silence, you're being handed a choice. Either you let that old conditioning dictate your worth, or you step into a new identity, one that refuses to let external behavior define your value. And here's the truth I want you to take in. Not just intellectually, but in your bonus, you are not defined by someone else's attention span, their ability to communicate, or their willingness to meet you where you are. You are defined by the standard you set for yourself. See, we live in a world that's constantly telling us we need to earn love. We need to earn respect. We need to earn attention. But what if that's a lie? What if your worth isn't something to be earned, but something to be recognized first by you, and then by others who are capable of seeing it? I'll give you an example. Imagine you walk into a gallery, and there's a priceless painting hanging on the wall. the kind of peace that art collectors would fight for. Now, imagine some random person off the street walks in, glances at it, and says, I don't like it. Does that opinion change the value of the painting? Of course not. The painting doesn't shrink in worth because someone failed to see its beauty. Its value remains exactly the same. And that's you. You don't become less valuable because someone can't or won't appreciate what you bring. But here's the catch. If you forget who you are, if you start believing that their silence defines you, then you begin lowering your own price tag. You start negotiating against yourself. And when you do that, you invite people to treat you as less valuable than you truly are. So what does it mean to remember who you are? It means reconnecting with that unshakable center inside you. The part that knows you are whole, worthy, and enough, no matter how someone else shows up. Even though it means refusing to let the behavior of another person rewrite the truth you value. I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about pretending you don't care when you do. I'm talking about a quiet, grounded certainty. The kind that says, I can care deeply about you, but my self-worth doesn't hang on whether or not you reply to my message. That's power. That's freedom. And let's be honest, most people never reach that place. Most people spend their lives giving away their self-worth like free samples, handing it out to anyone whose attention they crave, then feeling empty when it's not returned. But you're here because you want more. You're here because you're ready to stop living as a prisoner of other people's behavior. So let's break it down. When that avoidant doesn't reply, the first in your head might whisper, "What's wrong with me?" That's your conditioning talking. That's the echo of old wounds. And in that moment, you've got to challenge it. You've got to interrupt the pattern. You've got to say, wait, nothing is wrong with me. What's wrong is believing that my value depends on the response. And then you remind yourself of the truth. You are the source, not the beggar. You are the painting, not the opinion. You are the chooser, not the chosen. Think about it. Every time you hand your worth to someone else, you're asking them to do a job that's not theirs. It's not anyone else's job to make you feel enough. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And when you take that back, when you own it, you step into a level of confidence no silence, no ghosting, no avoidance can shake. Now, I want you to notice something. When you show up from this place of remembering who you are, you don't just protect your self-worth. You actually change the entire dynamic. Because instead of reacting out of fear, you respond out of strength. Instead of chasing, you create space. Instead of questioning your value, you demonstrate it, and people feel that. They sense it. Some will rise to meet you there. Some won't. And that's okay, because you're no longer chasing anyone's validation. I'll tell you a secret. The relationships that last, the ones that bring you peace and joy, are the ones built not on fear of abandonment, but on mutual recognition of value. But you can't get there if you don't remember who you are. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you feel that pang, that tightening in your chest when you realize they haven't replied, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, and remind yourself, I am not my anxiety, I am not their silence. I am the source of my own worth. And then from that place, you choose how to respond. Because life isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. And in that moment, remembering who you are is the difference between spiraling into insecurity and standing tall in certainty. At the end of the day, you can't control whether the avoidant replies, but you can control the story you tell yourself about their silence. And when that story comes from strength, from truth, from a deep remembering of who you really are, you win no matter what. So I'll leave you with this. When the world goes quiet and the people you want to hear from don't show up, ask yourself not, why aren't they replying? But who do I choose to be in the silence? Because when you remember who you are, their silence stops being a threat and becomes a stage for your strength. You know, one of the greatest challenges people face when someone avoids them, when the phone stays silent, when the reply never comes, is not the silence itself. It's the storm they create inside their own mind around that silence. And I want you to really sit with this for a moment, because this right here is the battlefield where most people lose. Not because the other person is ignoring them, because they've attached their peace, their emotional balance, and their sense of worth to whether or not that person shows up the way they want. That's what I mean when I say you've got to detach from the drama, because the drama doesn't live in the other person. It lives in the story you tell yourself about behavior. Think about it. The moment someone doesn't reply, what happens? Your brain goes into overdrive. It starts writing scripts. You think, maybe they're losing interest. Maybe I upset them. Maybe they're talking to someone else. And suddenly you've created an entire movie in your head, a movie where the one left behind, rejected, unworthy. And the truth is, none of that may even be real. But your nervous system doesn't know the difference. It reacts as if it's happening right now. Now, let's pause here, because this is more than just a bad habit. It's actually how the human mind is wired. From an evolutionary standpoint, your brain is designed to notice disconnection. Thousands of years ago, being excluded from the tribe could literally mean death. So the brain developed this radar for social cues, scanning for signs of acceptance or rejection. The problem is, in our modern world, that radar is on overdrive. A delayed text, a silent phone, a blue check mark with no reply. These little signals set off alarms as if you're in mortal danger. But you're not. You're safe. And that's where detaching from the drama becomes essential. Because the truth is, the drama is optional. It's a choice. You can't always control what other people do, but you can control the story you attach to it. Here's a metaphor for you. Imagine you're standing in a river. The water is rushing fast, carrying all kinds of debris, branches, leaves, even trash. That river is your stream of thoughts. Most people, when they see a piece of debris float by, grab onto it. They cling to it, analyze it, get dragged downstream by it. That's what happens when you attach to the drama. You get swept away by every what if and why not. Detaching means stepping back on the riverbank, watching the thoughts and stories float without grabbing onto them. You see it as them, but you don't have to get dragged downriver. And here's the beauty. When you learn to stand on the bank, the river still flows, but you remain steady, calm, and grounded. Now, some of you might say, but isn't detaching just ignoring the problem? Isn't that pretending not to care? Not at all. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means freedom. It means you care, but you don't cling. You feel, but you don't drown. You engage, but you don't enslave your peace to someone else's choices. Let's make this practical. The next time you notice that your avoidant partner or the person you're interested in hasn't replied, catch yourself. Notice the first thought that jumps in. Maybe it says, they don't like me anymore. Instead of believing it, pause. Ask yourself, do I actually know that? Or is this just a story my mind is writing? 99 times out of 100, you'll realize it's just a story. And here's the deeper layer. The reason we attach so fiercely to the drama is because drama feels familiar. It gives the mind something to chew on. Silence feels like a void. Most people are terrified of the void. The mind wants noise. It wants answers even if they're painful ones. That's why people end up sending long, desperate texts. That's why they scroll through old conversations, overanalyze every word. They're trying to fill the silence with a sense of certainty. But here's the paradox. The more you chase certainty from another person, the less peace you feel. Because the only real certainty doesn't come from them. It comes from within you. Detachment is the practice of finding that certainty in yourself instead of in their response. You see, the drama isn't in their silence. It's in your resistance to their silence. You resist it because you want reality to be different. You want them to show up differently, to reply faster, to reassure you. But when reality doesn't match your expectation, you suffer. Detachment is releasing that resistance. It's saying, I don't control their choices. I only control how I meet this moment. Now, let me ask you a question and answer honestly to yourself. How many hours, days, weeks have you lost spiraling in the drama of someone else's silence? How much energy have you wasted replaying conversations, overanalyzing texts, checking your phone every few minutes, hoping for a ding that never came? Be honest, because until you see the cost, you won't change. And the cost is huge. The cost is your peace. The cost, your confidence. The cost is all the joy you could have experienced in those hours while you were stuck in the loop. And for what? For a story your mind created, not a reality that was true. So here's the shift. The next time the avoidant doesn't reply, you stop feeding the drama. You breathe. You step back onto the riverbank. You remind yourself, this silence is not about me. It's about them. I'm not going to hand over my peace to a narrative that may not even exist. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your mind. You free yourself from being a prisoner to the notifications on your phone. And you start living from a place of calm strength instead of anxious chasing. Let me share a powerful truth with you. The person who can remain calm in the face of silence is the person who holds the power. Not because they're manipulating or playing games, because they're anchored in themselves. They've detached from the drama, and in doing so, they've created emotional freedom. Now, does that mean you never care if someone responds? Of course not. You're human. You want connection. That's natural. But there's a difference between wanting connection and being enslaved to it. Detachment is the difference between desire and desperation. And when you live in desire without desperation, you radiate confidence. And I'll tell you something else. People feel it. The avoidant feels it. The world feels it. When you detach from the drama, you stop chasing. You stop needing. And in that space, you become magnetic. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you become the rarest kind of person, someone who doesn't need validation to feel whole. So I want you to practice this. The next time you feel that wave of anxiety rise up when they don't reply, pause. Step back. Remind yourself, the drama is in the story, not in the silence. Choose not to grab the debris in the river. Choose to stand on the bank. And from that place, you can respond or not respond with clarity instead of fear. Because the truth is, detaching from the drama isn't just about handling silence better. It's about living your life from a place of inner power. It's about refusing to let someone else's behavior dictate the quality of your day. It's about remembering that you, and you alone, decide how much peace you get to experience in this moment. And that choice is available right now. Not after they reply, not after they explain themselves, not after they change, right now. Because the power to detach, to step back, to breathe, and to reclaim your peace, it's already in you. So when the silence comes, and it will, don't dive headfirst into the river of drama. Step onto the bank, smile, and remind yourself, I'm bigger than this story. I choose peace over panic. I choose strength over spiraling. And I promise you, if you can master that one shift, you'll never fear the silence again. Because when you detach from the drama, you don't just survive the silence, you thrive in it. A powerful closing statement, silence, only has the power you give it. Even take back that power, and you'll discover the calm strength that no unanswered message can ever take away from you. Let's talk about something that separates people who thrive in relationships from those who constantly feel drained and unworthy. It's the choice between leading with strength or reacting out of fear. And I want you to really hear this, because for so many people, this single distinction is the turning point does. Fear whispers lies. Fear is the voice in your head that says, if I don't push harder, they'll forget about me. If I don't send another text, I'll lose them. If I speak my truth, they'll walk away. And so you shrink, you compromise, you settle for breadcrumbs of attention, all while calling it connection. But here's the truth you've got to own. Fear never builds love. Fear builds cages. Fear builds prisons where you keep yourself small, quiet, compliant, just to avoid losing someone who, deep down, you already fear is slipping away. Now compare that with strength. Strength doesn't beg for attention. Strength doesn't chase. Strength doesn't apologize for existing. Strength says, I value myself enough to express what I want clearly, calmly, and without shame. And if you can't meet me there, that's your choice. But I will not betray myself to keep you close. That's the difference. And it's massive. Because when you lead with fear, you lose yourself. When you lead with find yourself. Let's get real. Most of us have, at some point, sent that panic-driven text, are you mad at me? Or, did I do something wrong? Why haven't you answered? And what happens the second you send it? You don't feel better. You feel worse. Because you just handed them your power. You gave them control over your peace of mind. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't communicate. Of course you should. Communication is essential. But there's a massive difference between communicating from fear and communicating from strength. Fear says, I need you to reply so I can feel okay. Strength says, I'm expressing myself because I know I deserve clarity, and I will be fine regardless of your response. Do you feel the difference? One is desperation. The other is dignity. Think of it this way. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror. The reflection you see is how you're showing up in that moment. When you lead with fear, what do you see? Shoulders slumped, eyes darting, voice shaky. That's not attractive energy, not of others and not of yourself. But when you lead with strength, your posture changes. Your eyes hold steady, even though it's not reality, and your voice carries calm certainty. And the reflection staring back at you says, that's someone who knows their worth. And here's the fascinating thing. Psychology backs this up. When you act from a place of fear, your body literally produces stress hormones that make you more anxious, more reactive, and less rational. But when you act from strength, your body produces chemicals that increase confidence, clarity, and calm. You literally become more magnetic, not because you're trying to manipulate, but because your internal state radiates outward. So how do you actually do this? How do you move from fear to strength? It starts with awareness. Catch yourself in the moment. Notice the impulse to send that fear-driven text. Notice the urge to over-explain, over-justify, over-apologize. And instead of acting on it, pause. Ask yourself, am I about to lead with fear? Or am I about to lead with strength? That single question can change everything. Next, connect back to your standard. What is the kind of relationship you want? One built on anxiety and chasing, or one built on mutual respect and trust? Strength reminds you that every message you send, every silence you allow, every boundary you uphold is a vote for the kind of relationship you're creating. So ask yourself, am I voting for fear or am I voting for strength? And let's talk about the words you choose. Fear uses words that cling. Fear says, I just need to know what I did wrong. Strength says, sense distance, and I value open communication. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. Do you feel the difference in energy? One is heavy-needy, the other is calm, clear, grounded. And here's the kicker. People respond to energy before they respond to words. You could say the exact same sentence, but if the energy behind it is fear, it will land as pressure. If the energy is strength, it will land as confidence. Now, let's take this deeper. Because leading with strength isn't just about sending one text. It's about how you live. It's about how you show up day after day, regardless of how others behave. Strength means you set boundaries not because you're trying to control others, but because you're honoring yourself. Strength means you refuse to chase validation because you've learned to validate yourself. Strength means you know the difference between asking for connection and begging for crumbs. Think about it. What do you attract when you lead with fear? You attract people who feed off insecurity, people who keep you guessing, keep you small, keep you waiting. But when you lead with strength, you attract people who recognize your value, who want to meet you at that level, who see you as an equal, not a subordinate. And listen, not everyone will meet you there. Some people will fall away when you lead with strength, and that's okay. Because if someone disappears when you step into your power, they were never meant to hold a place in your life to begin with. Sometimes the silence is the greatest gift because it reveals who's truly aligned with you and who isn't. There's a saying I love, your vibe introduces you before you speak. That's exactly what we're talking about here. When you walk into a room leading with fear, people sense it. When you walk in leading with strength, people sense that too. And in relationships, the energy you lead with sets the tone. Now, some of you might be thinking, but what if I lose them by standing strong? What if I scare them away? Let me tell you something. You can't lose someone who is meant for you by being authentic and strong. You can only lose the people who were never willing or able to meet you in truth. And if that happens, good. Because every time you release what doesn't serve you, even make room for what does. So the question isn't, what if I lose them? The question is, what if I lose myself by clinging to them out of fear? That's the real loss. That's the loss that leaves scars long after the relationship ends. Strength is not loud, and it's not aggressive. It's not about proving yourself. True strength is quiet certainty. It's the calm presence that says, I know who I am. I know what I deserve. And I'm not afraid of silence because my worth is not on trial here. I want you to imagine something. Imagine for a moment that you never again sent a message from fear. Imagine that every word you spoke, every decision you made, every boundary you set came from strength. How different would your relationships look? How much peace would you feel? How magnetic would you become simply because you were no longer driven by fear? That's not just a dream. That's a choice you can make. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. Because strength is not something you wait for. It's something you practice. And every time you choose it, you build more of it. So the next time you find yourself staring at your phone, waiting for a reply, and that fear creeps in, remember this, you have two options. You can lead with fear and shrink, or you can lead with strength and rise. And let me tell you, the world doesn't need more people shrinking. The world needs more people rising. And that starts with you. So here's my challenge. The next time silence comes and fear tells you to chase, to beg, to over-explain, pause, breathe, and then choose strength. Because when you lead with strength, you don't just change how others see you. You change how you see yourself. And that is the foundation of every great relationship you will ever have. When fear knocks, answer with strength. Because the moment you lead with strength, silence stops being a weapon and becomes a test you will always pass. We've already talked about remembering who you are. We've talked about detaching from the drama. And we've talked about leading with strength instead of fear. But now I want to give you something tangible. Something you can actually do the next time the avoidant doesn't reply. Because while mindset is everything, action is what anchors that mindset into reality. And this is where the power text comes in. Now, when most people find themselves staring at a phone with no reply, the temptation is to send one of three kinds of messages. The first is the anxious chase text. You know the one. Hey, did I do something wrong? Or why aren't you answering? That's fear talking. The second is the guilt trip. Whoa, I guess I'm not important enough for you to answer. That's pain talking. And the third is silence fueled by resentment. You say nothing, but inside you're boiling. That's pride talking. None of these serve you because they all give your power away. So instead of letting fear, pain, or pride take the wheel, I want you to come from a place of clarity and calm. Not because you don't care, not because you're pretending to be above it, but because you refuse to abandon yourself in the process. Here's the text I recommend. It's short, it's simple, and it changes everything. Hey, I sense some distance. That's okay. I'm here when you're ready to connect. And now at first glance, some of you might think, that's it? That seems too simple. But let me explain why this is powerful and why it works. First, notice the tone doesn't accuse. It doesn't chase. It doesn't guilt. It acknowledges reality without judgment. I sense some distance. That's awareness. Then it creates space without pressure. That's okay. That's acceptance. And finally, it opens the door with dignity. I'm here when you're ready to connect. That's strength. This one text is more than words. It's an energy. And the energy behind it communicates volumes. It says, I see what's happening. I'm not blind to the distance. But I refuse to sacrifice my peace or beg for scraps of attention. I'll meet you when you're ready. And if you never are, I'll still be okay. That's the posture of someone who knows their worth. Let's break it down psychologically. When you send a fear-driven text, you create pressure. Pressure activates avoidance. The more you push, the more they retreat. But when you remove pressure, you create space. And space is where an avoidant feels safest to re-engage, if they choose to. That's why this text is effective. It doesn't push. It doesn't demand. It simply states with calm clarity that you're open to connection without needing it to validate you. But here's the deeper reason it's powerful. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about showing yourself that you can communicate your truth without collapsing into fear. It's about training your nervous system to handle silence with grace instead of panic. Because let's be honest, it's never just about the message. It's about what the message represents. When you send that power text, you're reinforcing to yourself, I am someone who speaks with clarity. I am someone who honors my feelings without attacking or chasing. I am someone who leads with calm strength. And that identity shift is the real win. Now, let's talk about what happens after you send it, because this is where most people trip themselves up. They send a message like this, and then they sit by the phone, waiting, refreshing, hoping. That's not strength. That's fear wearing a mask. The true power of this text lies not just in sending it, but in detaching from the outcome once you do. Think of it like planting a seed. You put it in the soil, you water it once. And then what? Do you dig it up every 5 minutes to see if it's growing? No. You trust the process. You live your life. You keep tending your garden. And in time, if the seed was meant to grow, it will. If not, you still have a thriving garden because you didn't abandon it for one seed. That's the mindset I want you to take with this. Send the text, then get back to your life. Read, create, work out, call a friend, fill your own cup. Because your life is far too valuable to be put on hold for someone else's uncertainty. And here's the kicker. The more you live your life after sending it, the more magnetic you become. Not because you're trying to play hard to get, but because you've shifted from waiting to living. And that shift in energy is powerful. Now, let me be clear. This text is not a magic spell. It won't force someone to respond. It won't turn an avoidant into a secure partner overnight. That's not the point. The point is to show up with dignity and clarity, regardless of what they choose. Because the real transformation is happening inside you. And sometimes you'll send this text and they won't reply. That's okay. Because silence is also communication. And their silence gives you information. It tells you whether this person is capable of meeting you where you stand. And if they aren't, you now have the clarity to stop wasting time on someone who doesn't value connection the way you do. That's not rejection. That's redirection. That's life steering you towards something better. But sometimes you'll send this text and they will reply. And when they do, you've already set the tone. You've shown that you're calm, respectful, and strong. You've modeled healthy communication. And that creates a very different kind of dynamic moving forward. Now, some of you might still be wondering, but won't this make me seem too passive? Shouldn't I show more urgency? Listen carefully. Calm is not passive. Clarity is not weak. In fact, calm clarity is one of the strongest energies you can bring into a relationship. Because while anyone can react in panic, very few can respond with centered composure. That's rare. That's magnetic. That's leadership. Let me ask you this. Who would you rather follow into a storm? Someone flailing in fear, screaming about the waves? Or someone standing tall, calm, grounded, saying, I see the storm, I acknowledge it, and we'll navigate it together. That's the power of calm clarity. It creates trust, first in yourself, then in others. And I'll tell you something else, people treat you the way you treat yourself. If you treat yourself as someone who deserves panic-driven scraps, they'll mirror that. But if you treat yourself as someone who deserves calm, respectful communication, you'll start attracting people who give you exactly that. Not always, not instantly, but over time, as your standard becomes unshakable. So I want you to practice this. The next time the avoidant doesn't reply, instead of spiraling, instead of chasing, instead of writing a novel of explanations, send this one text. Short, calm, clear. And then walk away with your dignity intact, because that's how you retrain your nervous system. That's how you teach yourself over and over that you can handle silence without losing yourself in it. And let me tell you, the first time you do this, it might feel uncomfortable. Your fear will scream at you. But what if they never reply? What if I lose them? And that's when you remind yourself. If I lose them by standing strong, I never had them to begin with. Because the person who is truly for you won't leave when you stop chasing. They'll stay. They'll lean in. They'll meet you where you are. And if they don't, then your calm clarity has just saved you months of investing in the wrong person. So here's the bigger truth. The power text isn't just a tool. It's a declaration that you will no longer beg for attention, that you will no longer drown in fear, that you will no longer hand your worth to someone else's ability to reply. It's you saying, I will show up with clarity and calm, and if you can't meet me there, I'm still whole. And that right there is freedom. So don't underestimate the power of a few simple words spoken with the right energy. Because sometimes the smallest text carries the loudest message that you know exactly who you are, and you refuse to forget it. Send the message, stand in your power, and let the silence test them, not you. There's a pattern I've seen time and time again in people who struggle with avoidant partners or anyone who withholds communication in. They start to put their life on pause. They sit by the phone, refreshing the screen, waiting for that, and that net never comes. Hours go by. Days go by. And while their life keeps moving forward, they're standing still, waiting in the shadows of someone else's uncertainty. And I want to tell you the truth about that. Waiting in the shadows is one of the fastest ways to drain your power, your joy, and your sense of self-worth. Think about it. When you wait, what you're really saying isn't, my life, my mood, my happiness, and my sense of value are on hold until you decide I matter enough to respond. That's not just waiting, even though it's not reality, and that's giving away the keys to your peace of mind. That's putting your destiny in someone else's hands. And let me ask you, how many times has that waiting ever brought you more peace? How many times did sitting in the shadows actually make them text faster, love harder, or treat you better? Never. Because waiting in the shadows doesn't change them. It changes you. It makes you smaller. It makes you anxious. It trains you to live in a state of lack instead of abundance. The truth is, when you wait in the shadows, you stop being the main character of your own life. You become a supporting role in someone else's story. And let me tell you something, your life is far too precious, far too important for you to stand backstage while someone else decides if you get to come on stage. So here's the shift I want you to making. Stop waiting. Stop shrinking. Stop sitting in the shadows hoping they'll finally throw you a little light. Step into your own light. Lead your own life. Fill your own cup so full that whether they reply or not, you're still radiating. I want you to imagine something. Imagine you had a camera following you around for the next 24 hours. Would the footage show someone staring at a phone, stuck in limbo, waiting for someone else to make a move? Or would it show someone fully alive, living, laughing, creating, connecting, growing? Which one of those versions do you think commands respect? Which one do you think attracts love? Which one do you think builds a life worth living? You see, this isn't just about dating. This is about identity. Because every time you wait in the shadows, you're telling yourself a story. I am not enough as I am. I need them to validate me. I need them to choose me so I can feel chosen. And if you tell yourself that story long enough, you start to believe it. But even here's the good news. You can tell yourself a new story. You can say, I am worth more than waiting. I will not sit in the shadows. I will live in the light of my own strength. If they join me, amazing. If they don't, I keep moving. That story doesn't just change how you feel. It changes how you show up. And let me tell you something powerful. When you stop waiting, you stop chasing. And when you stop chasing, you stop settling. And when you stop settling, you create space for the right kind of connection to come in. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but isn't waiting just a sign of patience? Isn't it good to show I care? There's a difference between patience and passivity. Patience is about timing. It's waiting for the right moment while continuing to live your life fully. Passivity is about paralysis. It's freezing your life until someone else decides to include you. One empowers you, the other diminishes you. So here's the test. If your patience feels heavy, anxious, full of fear and self-doubt, that's not patience. That's waiting in the shadows. And you deserve better than that. I want you to hear this. The people who truly value you will never require you to put your life on hold to earn their attention. They will want to be part of your light, not watch you dim it in the shadows. Now let's talk about how to stop waiting. Because it's one thing to say, don't wait, and another to actually live it. The first step is awareness. Notice the moment you put your life on pause. Notice when you skip plans, when you stare at your phone instead of living your day, when you feel paralyzed by the silence. Awareness is the doorway to change. Next, redirect your focus. When you catch yourself waiting, choose action. Go for a run. Call a friend. Work on that project you've been avoiding. Create something. Move your body. Fill your life with things that make you feel alive. Because waiting is stagnation and action is energy. The more you act, the less the silence owns you. And here's the deeper layer. Start cultivating a vision bigger than the relationship. What do you want your life to look like in a year? In 5 years, what kind of person do you want to become? When you have a vision that excites you, you stop waiting for someone else to decide your worth. Because your worth is already tied to something greater, your mission, your growth, your destiny. And I'll tell you something. People who are living fully are magnetic. They don't need to beg for attention. They attract it, not because they're playing games, but because they've stepped into their own light. Now let's be real. When you stop waiting, some people will notice. They'll feel the shift. And sometimes that will make them come running back. But here's the question. Do you actually want someone who only values you when you stop waiting, even though it's not reality yet? Or do you want someone who values you because you never waited in the first place? Don't mistake a chase for commitment. True connection doesn't require you to sacrifice your own light. And if they don't come back, good, because then you know. You stop wasting months, even years, sitting in the shadows of someone who was never willing to step into the light with you. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine your life is a beautiful theater. The stage is lit. The seats are filled. The orchestra is playing. Are you going to stand behind the curtain, peeking out, and waiting to see if one person in the audience claps for you? Or are you going to step onto the stage and give the performance of your life, knowing that your worth isn't tied to one set of hands? That's the difference between waiting in the shadows and living in your light. And I want you to remember this. Your time is the most valuable resource you have. Once it's gone, you don't get it back. Every hour you spend waiting in the shadows is an hour you could have spent building the life you deserve. And if you don't guard your time, if you don't guard your energy, no one else will. So the next time you find yourself staring at that silent phone, catch yourself. Ask, am I waiting or am I living? And if the answer is waiting, make a different choice. Put the phone down, step outside, take a walk, do something that reminds you who you are outside of this silence. It's not reality. And because here's the ultimate truth. The person you've been waiting for is you. You've been waiting to step into your own light. You've been waiting to give yourself the love, the attention, the focus that you keep begging from someone else. And the moment you stop waiting for them and start showing up for yourself, everything changes. So don't wait in the shadows. Step into the light, not for them, for you. Because the people who are truly meant for your life will find you in the light, not in the shadows where you've been hiding. We've covered a lot together. You've learned to stop begging for replies, to detach from the drama, to lead with strength, to send a message that radiates calm clarity, and to stop waiting in the shadows of someone else's silence. But now we arrive at the final and most transformative piece of the puzzle-making piece, with the outcome. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how strong your text is, how centered your energy is, or how boldly you step into the light. If you can't make peace with however they respond or don't respond, you'll stay trapped in the same cycle of anxiety and pain. So let's tell the truth, what you're really chasing, and all of this isn't the text back. It isn't the validation. It isn't even the relationship. What you're chasing is peace. That feeling in your chest that says, I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm worthy. And here's the paradox. The peace you're chasing can never be given to you by their reply. Even if they text back, even if they say all the right words, that peace will only last until the next silence, the next unanswered call, the next wave of uncertainty. If your peace is tied to their behavior, you'll always be one unanswered message away from losing it. Real peace comes from within. It comes from making a decision deep in your soul that you will be okay, not because of what they do, but because of who you are. Making peace with the outcome means you stop bargaining with reality. You stop saying, I'll feel worthy if they respond. You stop saying, I'll feel loved if they choose me. Instead, you declare, I am worthy now. I am complete now. And from that place, whatever outcome comes, whether they reply, whether they don't, whether they stay, whether they leave, you remain whole. Now, that doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you allow yourself to care without collapsing. You allow yourself to love without losing yourself. You allow yourself to want connection without chaining your peace to it. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine standing on the shore, watching the ocean waves come in. Some waves are big, some small, some crash loudly, some roll gently. You don't control the waves. They rise, they fall. But if you fight them, if you demand that the ocean only give you gentle waves, you'll exhaust yourself. Making peace with the outcome is realizing the waves are the waves. They come, they go. You don't control the ocean, but you can choose how you stand on the shore. So if the wave of silence comes, you breathe. You anchor your feet. You let it wash over you. And then you remain. You're still there, still strong, still whole. And here's the deeper truth. When you make peace with the outcome, you become unshakable. People can feel it. There's a quiet power in someone who is no longer controlled by results. You're not detached in a cold, numb way. You're engaged, present, open, but free. And that freedom is magnetic. Because think about it. What's more attractive? Someone who says, please, please, please love me so I can feel whole. Or someone who says, I'd love to share my life with you, but either way, my light is not negotiable. The second person radiates something rare. Security. And security is irresistible. Now, let's address the fear directly. Some of you are thinking, but if I make peace with the outcome, doesn't that mean I'm giving up? Doesn't that mean I don't care if I lose them? Not at all. Making peace with the outcome isn't about giving up. It's about giving up control you never had in the first place. You never controlled their reply. You never controlled their ability to connect. The only thing you've ever controlled is your response to it. So you're not giving up on connection. You're giving up on attaching your peace to it. You're saying, here, I'm open. I'm ready, but I will not abandon myself if you can't or won't meet me here. And that is the ultimate form of strength. Let me share something powerful with you. The avoidant isn't your teacher. Silence is. Silence is showing you where you still abandon yourself. Silence is showing you where you still confuse someone else's behavior with your worth. And when you finally learn to make peace with the outcome, silence loses its power. It can no longer take you hostage. Here's the process I want you to practice. The next time you send the power text, or even if you choose not to send one at all, and the silence lingers, pause. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe deeply. Say to yourself, I release the outcome. I trust myself to be okay no matter what. Say it until your nervous system begins to believe it. You'll notice something incredible happen. The anxiety in your chest begins to soften. The tight grip of what if begins to loosen. And suddenly, you realize the peace you've been begging for has been inside you the whole time. And here's the paradox. When you stop needing the outcome to bring you peace, you often get better outcomes. Because people are drawn to those who are already whole. You're no longer sending texts with invisible strings attached. You're no longer holding conversations hostage to your need for reassurance. You're free, and freedom is magnetic. But let's go deeper. Making peace with the outcome isn't just about this one relationship. It's about life. How many areas of your life are you waiting for the perfect outcome to finally feel at peace? I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll feel worthy when I lose the weight. I'll feel secure when they finally commit. That's the same pattern. Tying your peace to conditions outside your control. What if you decided that peace wasn't a future condition, but a present choice? What if you chose to feel whole now, regardless of the outcome? How much of your life would that free up? How much more alive would you feel? Listen, the outcomes of life are unpredictable. People will come and go. Jobs will change. Circumstances will shift. The one constant is you. And if you anchor your peace in who you are, not what happens, then nothing, and no one, can take it away. So the question becomes, do you want to spend the rest of your life as a prisoner of outcomes? Or do you want to step into the kind of freedom where you can love deeply, show up fully, and yet remain unshakably whole, no matter what? because that's what making peace with the outcome gives you. The ability to love without fear, to connect without desperation, to live without waiting. And that's not just about relationships. That's about becoming the kind of person who radiates calm strength in every area of life. I want you to imagine for a moment that you truly embrace this. Imagine sending the message, or facing the silence, and instead of spiraling, you smile. You breathe. You remind yourself, whatever happens, I will be okay. How much lighter would your heart feel? How much energy would that free up for the things that truly matter? That's the gift of making peace with the outcome. Not that you stop clearing. Not that you stop loving. But that you love from a place of freedom, not fear. So the next time you face that silence, whether they reply or not, whether the outcome is what you wanted or not, stand tall, smile softly. And remind yourself, my peace is not on trial here. I am whole, worthy. I am enough. Because when you can make peace with the outcome, you stop surviving relationships and you start living them. And that is the freedom you've been searching for all along.